Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and today I want to give my take on renting equipment versus buying it versus finding a way to get it done without. And it's a really timely topic because a lot of people are telling me to rent a scissor lift for this job. So in this video I want to get into whether or not I think it makes sense to rent a scissor lift for this job, changes I'm going to make on how I'm doing this job, whether or not it makes sense to buy a backhoe for a tractor. Does it make sense to even buy a tractor? How many hours do people put on a tractor per year? Could you just pay someone to do all that work, save money, and sit in the house? Do you want to do that? It's kind of a complicated conversation, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. There might be what's right for me, what I think is right for me, what's right for you, and I just want to present some different ways of thinking about it. I make a video every single day. In the last year, I've made over 300 videos, and in almost all of those videos, with this being a rare exception, I'm either building something, running my tractor, doing some kind of work outside. And so, in a week, that's 7 videos, and probably 3 of those videos, I'll get a comment saying that I should rent a piece of equipment so I can do the job more efficiently. And if you look at each one of those individually, it can make sense. Because for that job, I could save a ton of time, spend $200 on a rental, do the job faster. And so if you're someone who only does, this type of work a couple times a year, then you should probably just rent all the equipment. But in my case, I don't think so. So to start with, let's talk about a tractor in general. This tractor right here, I bought it with an entire list of attachments. I had upgrades done to it. I got the backhoe. I got extra hydraulics. Everything involved with this tractor, it was about $50,000. And then I've spent a bunch more money on it since then. And for that, I've gotten 500 hours of use in a year and a half. Less than that, but we'll say 500 hours in a year and a half. Now let's say I can rent this machine for $200 a day, and they put an 8-hour limit per day on that rental cost, or you pay extra. So if you do the math, 500 hours divided by 8 times an estimated $200 per day to rent it, I could have had this machine 500 hours for $13,000. Off the top of my head, I said, man, you should just rent it a tractor every time you need to use one. $13,000 versus $50,000. But obviously, the tractor still has value. And a lot of times people compare the cost to rent something to the cost of buying it. And that's not how the math works. The way the math works, at least in my mind, is the cost to rent versus the depreciation. So let's leave all the other attachments out of it and just say the tractor with the hydraulic upgrades was like $32,000. Let's say today the tractor minus the cab, I want to make this math simple for if you didn't make any major changes. So let's say today the tractor that I bought for $32,000 is worth $24,000. It's depreciated by $8,000. Then I come out ahead just on math. And then the simple fact that every one of those rentals requires scheduling, picking up, dropping off, learning the difference between the new machine that you just got. You're probably not going to rent the same machine every time. You're not going to rent it every time you need to do something. A lot of times you're just going to do less stuff because it's a hassle to rent. That seems pretty obvious. That's why most of the people watching this own a tractor rather than renting one all the time. But that same argument gets taken a different way with the backhoe. Because my tractor has a $9,000 backhoe. And people say, man, for $9,000, think how many times you could rent a backhoe, and the backhoe you rent will be better. That's accurate. But again, you have the same concerns with renting a unit. You've got to pick it up and drop it off, or you're paying someone to pick it up and drop it off. Then there's scheduling. I want it tomorrow. It's not available tomorrow. I have a leak on the weekend and I need to dig up some pipe and I can't get access to a machine, convenience, the fact that I just want one. But let's separate all that out. Personally, in the last 2 years, I've rented a backhoe 3 times. Twice before I got the tractor and once after. I spent over $2,000 on that. Now, I've done much more digging with the tractor backhoe than what I did with the rented backhoes because it's here and I can just do it anytime I feel like. And so I'm able to get a lot more done. But you say I spent $2,000 on rentals. Well, that's cheaper than a $9,000 backhoe. That's true, but my backhoe today is probably worth more than the $7,000. So the depreciation of my backhoe is less than the rentals. So that explains why I think it makes sense to buy a backhoe for a tractor instead of renting a backhoe when you need one. Now let's look at the project I'm on today. Everyone keeps telling me to rent a scissor lift. Well, there's a bunch of problems there for me. I've learned enough about building these that even with the scissor lift, it's going to take you at least a week. And you have to have help all those days. So if I could round up a week's worth of help on consecutive days and rent the lift for a week, I'm going to be $1,200 or more. Additionally, most scissor lifts aren't designed to be used out here on this gravel ground. They're meant to be used on concrete. So if all the stars aligned, I could get all the help I needed, I could put this up in a week, and they'll let me use it on this rough ground, then I'm going to spend $1,200 and have no residual value of that. Whereas, I'm taking a different approach. I already had a hay wagon, I already had a scaffolding, I already had some ladders, and I think I've got something really solid here. I've used heavy-duty ratcheting straps to anchor down in 4 directions and have that scaffolding tied to a really stable hay wagon. We're solid, we're high enough. The negative is we have to move it around, and that really is an inconvenience. So I've come up with a new plan. My new plan is still not renting anything. I've bought some more stuff, and I'm going to set up multiple points across here that we can access the roof from and work with multiple people up on top fastening arches down, so that maybe I can build a bunch of arches and then we stand them up rapidly and have multiple people on top running bolts in. And I think that's going to save us a lot of time. I spent less money on the new stuff I bought than I would have spent on a rental. And here's the difference. If I rented that, it still would have been easier than what I'm going to do. And I've spent almost as much on the stuff. So it still feels like, well, rental's better. But not really. Because I have another pole barn up here. And I want to redo the insulation on the ceiling. I want to change out all the fluorescent lights. This week I need to hang Christmas lights on the front of the house. And that has me kind of standing on the roof and trying to hang over to clip them on the gutter. I'm now going to have a way to do that that's here. I mean, I'm not going to rent a scissor lift to put up Christmas lights. And I don't want to rent a scissor lift to redo the ceiling in my shop. And I might build a mezzanine in here. I don't want to rent a scissor lift again for that. If it came down to it to me, and the only way to do this was a scissor lift, I'd see if I could buy one. And then I'd try to find ways to get paid to use a scissor lift, or to make money in my existing businesses that's benefited by a scissor lift. There's a 3-point scissor lift that Tractor Time with Tim has shown, and it's expensive, but you can have a scissor lift on a tractor, and then I could take jobs cleaning out people's gutters if I wanted. That's the way my mind works. I want to build equity in equipment, because every time you rent something, you're not gaining any equity towards future projects. Whereas, if you start as a young man and you're working outside, and you purchase the equipment that you need, even if it's used or it's honky like a hay wagon with a scaffolding strap to it, you eventually, over time, build equity in your equipment and you gain ability to accomplish things without needing to rent or buy something. An example is a concrete mixer. Everyone told me rent a concrete mixer. If you need to, I'll just buy one. The one that I've got here, that's actually my dad's unit that he bought because he has the same mindset, and I hadn't mixed concrete in a long time. I brought that over here. I've used it for 2 other things because I'm doing something else. I was setting the light pole. I could have set that light pole without concrete. I wouldn't have paid a concrete truck to come in here and do that. It was like 6 bags. I wouldn't have wanted to mix those in buckets, but I could have. I probably would not have set that in concrete if I didn't have a mixer here, but I had one, so I used it. That's why I feel the importance of building equity in equipment if you're going to be working on stuff all the time. The downside to all that is you have a bunch of equipment laying around that you don't use that much. And you have to put up a Quonset hut so that you've got somewhere to put all the equipment. But that's my preference. And I appreciate all the comments telling me that I should rent something, but I don't want to. I have a tractor so that I don't have to rent a skid steer. And the tractor takes twice as long as the skid steer and might not do as good a job. But I already have it, and I don't want to put money out to rent a skid steer. I am hoping to buy a skid steer and have it on the property in the spring because I see a lasting value in buying one. I see a lasting value in using my tractor for skid steer type work. I don't see any value in renting a skid steer. Sorry that was such a long rambling video, but I just wanted to address the concept of renting versus buying, give my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think. What am I missing in the math or the convenience of the rental equipment? I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. You should see more of our videos right here, and I'll see you next time.